you want to follow where the money's going. So where we actually focus on is where all the developers are building these developments. So places like Dominican Republic, places like Dubai, Costa Rica. If we think since COVID, those prices have actually increased over this past 5 years. And why is that? It's really riding on the back of a more globalized population. People are living in different countries, people are becoming, digital nomads. And off the back of that, these tourist destinations are now becoming a hub for people to actually, start new lives there. And because of that, we got, a huge increase in prices or huge increase in demand from these, Western countries with Western salaries. When they come to emerging markets, it just, increases the prices for everybody there.
You are listening to the #1 real estate podcast in the world. We talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, and stories help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street. I'm joined with Vikram Deol of the Real Estate Sales Academy and of Sheridan Street. Vic, what's up, man? What's happening? What's good in your world? We have an event coming up. Why don't you tell the listeners about what's happening in Fort Lauderdale on May the 19th and May 20th?
Well, we're going to be talking conversion, which is shockingly like the least discussed topic in the real estate world, when most agents more conversion.
It's the most wanted thing, the least talked about thing.
Everybody wants more sales, but they don't talk about the mechanisms to get more sales. They don't talk about the psychology of the buyers and the sellers, and why a seller wouldn't actually reach out to sell their home. They're going to reach out to talk about buying, and they're not going to tell you that they have a home to sell. They're going to talk about their next purchase, because buying is aspirational, selling is transactional. And so nobody talks about going to the airport to get to Hawaii. They talk about once they're in Maui and they're sitting on the beach and they're chilling and they're in the ocean and their kids are having a great time. They don't say like, oh my God, I have to go through TSA. Thank God I have pre-check. No, they don't go, oh my God, I just got this new luggage that has great wheels. I'm so excited. No, they don't talk about that. They talk about what? Getting to the destination. And so sellers don't talk about selling their home. They talk about moving into the next chapter. Mm-hmm. They don't want to actually buy a house. They want to move somewhere for a reason. And real estate agents have been lied to for the last 30 years, 40 years on how to have conversations with potential humans that want to make a move. And that's what we're going to talk about inside of the live summit on May 19th. We're probably going to get a little spiritual as well and do some fun, as you call it, woo-woo stuff. And there's going to be some yoga on the beach, some walking meditations the next morning on Tuesday. So we're really going to kind of like help people reset their energy, their body. We're going to help them reset kind of like their outlook on the space. We have Sharon, the president of Real, one of our good mutual friends. We have Leo, the president of EXP. We have a bunch of other great speakers that are going to talk about building brands and how to take their brand and sync it with what we're teaching inside of the Real Estate Sales Academy to actually book the appointments that convert into transactions, so that agents don't have to work hard to get paid a couple of times a month.
Yeah, that'd make a big difference. They got paid a couple of times a month. If you haven't noticed, I've been throwing some shade in our ads around LP Mama. And everyone's like, why are you throwing shade around LP Mama? Well, I'm throwing shade around LP Mama. If Vic almost spit out his water. Why am I throwing?
Don't watch that on YouTube.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. It's like, so we have a couple clients, Sal, me and Sal were having a conversation the other day, and so proud of Sal because, somebody asked him a question of why are you throwing shade on LP Mama? And he kind of like regurgitated one of the lines that like, hey, like LP Mama assumes that people buy with logic and they justify with emotion, when in all actuality, people buy with emotion and they justify with logic. And we're going to teach you how to get into that emotion on May 19th and May 20th at the summit in Fort Lauderdale. Get your tickets. If you want more information, it's in the link below. But without further ado,
don't buy tickets, because for every person that shows up, we are losing $250. So don't buy a ticket. Don't come and hang out. Yeah. Don't learn cool shit. Don't improve your sales game.
Reverse psychology.
The number one question that I get is this only for new agents? And that's the ego of the real estate industry, is that they think that only new agents need to upgrade their skills And that's why they plateau. And the difference between like the best agents and like average agents or even like good agents and not great agents is that great agents are constantly up leveling, but don't get a ticket because one, we only have 10 left as of this recording. And two, it literally is costing us negative $250. It's not good ROI. You know, it's not a good ROI on the event.
It's it's a catalyst event for us. We'll just call it what it is. It's a catalyst event.
Cody's getting nice over here.
I'm getting nice.
He's definitely not nice to me in our meetings when we talk about planning the event. He's like, stop spending money, Vic. And I'm like, bro.
Well, you get on these calls, you get on these recording calls. You're like, hey, I just spent another $200. I'm like, bro, it is what it is. Sorry. But I digress. Why don't you intro our guest? We have a very special guest in another country right now. So we're like in totally different time zones than our guest. Why don't you Vic, why don't you do us a favor?
Like 9 o'clock. I'd like to invite Ricardo. And I'm kind of excited because it's a space that we haven't really talked about on here. For a lot of people, it's probably going to go over their head. But he's created a fund to buy properties in other countries. And, the name of his company is Oasis, but I mean, why don't you give us a 30-second kind of short clip on what you do, man? And then let's jam.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, on your show. Just to introduce myself, I'm Ricardo, the founder of Oasis. So what we do, we provide a marketplace to allow investors to access curated properties from all over the world. We mainly focus on luxury resort properties in emerging markets. And we use a blockchain technology to allow a seamless way to invest, to trade, and to generate passive income.
That was 30 seconds. I didn't even know if you hit 30 seconds. Yeah.
Try to keep it concise.
That was good. I mean, that's definitely a tech person speaking. That's how Cody talks. He's like, all right, so I have 3 minutes to talk. Let me see if I can make it 30 seconds and get off the stage as fast as possible. So first off, let's kind of slow down to speed up.
Mm-hmm.
Why should agents or why should our listeners, right? Why should anybody want to invest in an emerging market? To me, that sounds a little scary.
From my perspective, is where the biggest opportunities are. You want to follow where the money's going. So where we actually focus on is where all the developers are building these developments. So places like Dominican Republic, places like Dubai, Costa Rica. If we think like since COVID, those prices have actually increased, 70, 80% over this past 5 years. And why is that? It's really riding on the back of a more globalized population. People are living in different countries. People are becoming, digital nomads. And off the back of that, these tourist destinations are now becoming a hub for people to actually, start new lives there. And because of that, we got, a huge increase in prices or huge increase in demand from these, Western countries with Western salaries. When they come to emerging markets, it just, increases the prices for everybody there. So we kind of want to focus.
We were in Punta Cana last December.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we went, we rented Cody brought his parents out, rented a boat. And when we drove through the neighborhood to get to the yacht club, I mean, it was a whole new world. When you get behind the gates, it was a whole new world, like multi-million-dollar luxury properties. One of the baseball players from one of the big teams, he has a property there. He's like one of the highest paid baseball players. He has like a $10 million property there that,
wow.
Yeah, it's like, allegedly it's like super sick. I was like, let's go drive by that instead of going to the yacht club and like, let's go see that property. I mean, there's Ferraris in the driveways. There's AMG Mercedes. Like, I didn't see a lot of Beamers, but I saw a lot of Mercedes, a lot of money there. It was wild. And I'm like, Cody, where did we just enter into? He's like, I don't know, bro, but like next year we're not staying on the other side of the island. We're staying here if we come back. So yeah. I get like what you're saying, like they're emerging markets, and Cody and I live in, I guess we're technically not digital nomads anymore because we have some roots, but technically we're still kind of in that digital nomad expat space where we live in South America.
Okay.
I'm not going to say the city because I don't want more people here because it's already hard enough to get an Uber now. But we're here in South America. We didn't come because, we didn't come because of like, the dollar to to the foreign sea exchange. We just got off the plane. I'm like, I think I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
And he's like, he just looked at me like, oh, you always say these crazy things. I'm like, no, I'm good, man. And we're seeing a lot of like where we live right now. I mean, some of the hotels that they're building, some of the restaurants that, I mean, Mamba Negra across the street, it's like you walk in. I mean, it's
a lot of
spectacular.
A lot of expats, a lot of people living.
Spectacular.
Now, I have a question here, because I think that, like, you know, our audience of real estate agents, you know, I think the natural progression for them is like, they know, okay, I either invest locally or I invest over, you know, seas, or I do something. And I know a lot of realtor friends that have, you know, properties in Colombia, have properties in, you know, properties in Punta Cana, you know, properties in
Costa Rica.
over Costa Rica. What are the things, and what are the challenges right now with like owning property abroad? And, you know, Vic and I have had this conversation before, is there's a little bit of scarcity around the fact that like some of the developers can be a little bit sketchy. So you put money in, and then there's that fear of like, okay, I put money into this project and this project never actually completes. They dissolve the corporation, you lose your money. Like, how do you like walk, you know, an accredited investor through that process of like with these foreign entities that, you know, it's like you could possibly lose your money, or you could like, it's just, it's not as simple as like investing in like Canada or investing in the US. Like the regulations are a little different. How do you get around those regulations and kind of create a little bit of I guess safety net for somebody that wants to, you know, invest abroad?
So it's good that you mentioned that. So that's actually the biggest risk that we face, is the, you know, development risk. And it's not even always so much, you know, do they close the company and run off? It's the quality of the build once they actually do finish it. And essentially how we operate is we actually partner with those developers. So part of our criteria is their track record. Do they deliver on time? What are their, you know, past developments been like? And that's probably the main box that we need to tick, you know, before we actually take on any developments on our platform. In terms of, you know, safeguarding, we do have insurances in place depending on where the development's happening. We have local insurance there, but, you know, it's real estate. So, and you're dealing with actual people, you're dealing with actual companies. So it's not a risk you can, you know, completely eliminate, but it's something that you have to put things in place to try and mitigate as much as possible.
I have like 4 questions.
Only 4?
Well, I got 4 that I'm going to right now, but one, how are you, I know you said you're following the money, but how are you guys staying on top of kind of like global shifts in the marketplace right now, right? Like the US has got new leadership. Canada's got horrible, shitty new leadership. There's a lot of uncertainty in what's going on in the world right now with, you know, a lot of financial shifts in the market. I mean, Bitcoin and crypto and the stock market had like a 30% drop back in February. And now it's, you know, everything's back up again. In some cases, like Bitcoin, I think just hit 105,000 today, 103,000 today. So it went all the way down where people were like, oh, you know, some people are like, oh, this is the end of the world. Other people are like, you guys are crazy. Like you have no idea what the game is. And it shot all the way back up and it exceeded what it dropped from. With all this kind of uncertainty happening, how should an investor, right? So let's say somebody's got $250,000 that they would be willing to invest. How should they be looking at investments? Should it be like all in one project? Should they spread it out and diversify? Right? Like how would you recommend if you were talking to somebody with some money that they wanted to put overseas?
I suppose to answer that question, I would first tackle it on diversification is like, it's going to be key regardless, you know, of whatever you decide to do, you know, with the money. But how I look at real estate in general, when you mentioned like Bitcoin, you know, fluctuating from, you know, down to, I think it got to like 75K and then now it's back up to, you know, and that's in the past few months.
It's like 60 days. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as crazy if you're in crypto and you're kind of used to the cycles. Someone looking in from the outside, it can definitely look, you know, very crazy, you know. But the reason why we actually are combining crypto with real estate is for that reason. is so that you can actually provide a much more stable asset on chain. So people who do have Bitcoin, they can now invest in, tokenized real estate. They can actually benefit from the stability that you have from, real estate markets. The overall like financial risk, I would say, in my opinion, is really the financing risk. And by investing in this way, you can eliminate the financing risk because we don't take on any financing for these acquisitions. It's all equity. So if you own, 10% of this particular investment, you own 10%. If the interest rates go up to 7%, that wouldn't affect your actual investment. You don't have that financing risk.
So
baked in.
Everything you guys are developing and buying, or everything that these projects are developing, because the assets are coming from individuals across the world, there's zero loans on the properties.
Exactly. We don't take
And
on
is
any.
that, second question to that real quick, is that built into the contract that the developer can't take a loan on the property as well, so that there is protection? Because if you start developing a property and it's, nice sandy beach, and then you start putting a beautiful structure on it, and all of a sudden it goes from $1 million to $30 million in value, developer's like, hey, let's pull a loan out, go do another project down the street. Are there are the contracts protecting those types of, shady business?
In regards to like the actual assets themselves, because we own the freehold, we would have, the investors will have access to say, do we want to take a loan out on it? The developers themselves, how they finance their actual development is separate to the asset at the end. We're buying it from them essentially. So long as we buy it without any debt on the actual property, there is no debt in that property.
Hold up. So I got to visualize this a little bit more, because this is super interesting. So developer comes to Ricardo, Oasis, and says, hey, I got a 300 room luxury on the beach, Punta Cana resort that we're building. Its value is $100 million.
Okay.
That's what the sale. Are you guys go and find the property, and then you guys put it under contract, and then you crowdfund through crypto and through tokenized assets, and you crowdfund it, and then you put in the bid? Or how does that work?
It's a mix of both conceptually. So the developer, they say, we're developing this resort. It's, there's 200 apartments in this resort. And then they would then go and market and sell those individual apartments. So they're looking at, let's say it's in Punta Cana. The project we're actually doing is in Cap Cana, just to be specific. But they would go to, let's say, they'd market it to Canada, to the US, whichever, and sell individual apartments. Let's say these apartments are $400,000 each. So, they're looking for individual investors who's got, $400,000, whichever the case may be, to actually sell to. Once they buy that property, they own the freehold to that actual property itself. So we're not, let's say, investing in as a percentage of the overall resort. We're investing in the individual properties that they're selling. So we're just essentially the marketplace helping them sell these properties, essentially. On the investor side, instead of them having to come up with $400,000 to own this property in Cap Cana, what they can do is they can invest, $100,000, $50,000. Someone else would invest $20,000 and essentially crowdfund that
one apartment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Once that fund's complete, we would then purchase that property. Let's say it's still got 9 months to 12 months of development left. We'll pay the down payments and whatever's in the payment schedule for that, and then the resort would then manage that property within their rental scheme. Then each quarter, all the rental returns are then distributed directly to the owners of the actual tokens.
Yeah,
so
makes sense. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wild world we live in, isn't it?
It's a super wild world. Like I want to contextualize some of this stuff to, realtors as they're listening to this, because I think a lot of real estate agents, like I said at the top of the hour, they want to figure out, if they're doing well, which we teach agents how to get to a consistent 2 deals a month. When they're like, we fundamentally believe once they get to consistent 2 deals a month, their life fundamentally changes.
A lot of money.
They make a lot of money. And, as long as they, we also teach agents how to kind of manage profit and loss statements, not overspend, not spend on stupid lead gen stuff that they don't need.
Mhm.
So they have money sitting, if they listen to what we say, they have money sitting aside. So, if somebody had, 50, 100, $200,000 kind of set aside, like where would you recommend that they start in the world of like foreign investing? Would you recommend that they start like with a property like that if they don't have anything, or would you say they invest locally? Like, what would your advice be based on the knowledge that you have in this space?
I mean, my advice would be slightly biased
Mm.
because obviously my platform, but I would suggest to diversify and find the easiest way to access um, other markets. Depending on where you live, local markets can be good if you are experienced in, let's say you're doing a fix and flip, for example, or you want to buy and refinance. Local markets are good for that because you have that local knowledge, you've got access to contractors, etc. So it's more of an active, you're really more active when you're actually investing that way. If you want something more passive and you just want somewhere to, invest your money, generate passive income, maybe even have somewhere to vacation to when you do want to take a break from selling real estate, I would say use Oasis and then look at what projects we've got, currently available. Let's say, we've got a project in Dominican Republic, another one in Costa Rica, another one in Thailand, whichever the case may be. You can then say, okay, I'm gonna take this $200,000 and I'm gonna put 50,000 over here, 50,000 over there,
Yeah.
20,000 over here, and you can now own property in different parts of the world. So whatever's happening in US, for example, wouldn't necessarily affect the market in Thailand, or wouldn't necessarily affect the market, in Dubai, or
Yeah.
so you can kind of, spread your risk.
It makes sense too, because like when you think about it, like, even here, we're in Latin America, like the Airbnb market is still significantly driven by expats where like,
Mhm.
like I don't know if you're seeing this, Vic. I would love to kind of get your insight and then your insight on this as well, Ricardo. The investor friends that I have been talking to, especially in the US and Canada, people are kind of like shifting back from Airbnb over to hotels again. I can't even remember the last time I stayed in a Airbnb in the US, just based on like the pricing model of, Airbnbs now. They're almost the same cost, or if not more, as just
Mhm.
going to a hotel. Like Vic, like, what are you seeing? And then I would love to hear from you as well, Ricardo. Like, are you seeing that shift? Like, people doing less Airbnb stuff like in the US and kind of moving back to hotels, or what are you guys seeing?
I we just came back from what, 3 events.
Yeah.
We were in 2 events in the States, and we have our own event, and a lot of people, and then like even some of our clients who were just at like Joe Dispenza and a couple of other events, they're still, even I mentioned to this to you yesterday, I was like, you know, I'm spending $1,600 in Orlando. You're spending $1,600 in Orlando. Well, the company is, we got $5,000 going out for 3 hotel rooms for 4 days. I was like, we don't get to, we don't get to bond with our team. We have to pay for expensive meals at a hotel, which are going to be subpar quality. I was like, why don't we just get an Airbnb and just, give the guys like eggs and bacon in the morning and
Yeah.
send them to work while they're at the event. And it would probably be for $5,000, and Orlando would probably get a pretty swanky house.
Yeah.
And it would be, like it'd be more of an experience versus just, I'm in a hotel room by myself. You're in a hotel room with your girl. The guys are in a hotel room by themselves. Like, it's very isolated. And even like, Camila and her team, they're staying at our summit. They're staying in an Airbnb. There's 4 or 5 of the gals staying in an Airbnb. Right. So I think it just depends on the people, right?
Yeah. I think it's
bless you.
contextual. It's definitely contextual
So
it's definitely
I
contextual, but
think for me, like, I'm not a big hotel guy. I don't love hotels. So if we're going places, I would prefer to stay together just from a company culture standpoint. Like even at this even at this event, our room's already booked and it's too late now, but I'm like, why didn't we stay off site at an Airbnb close in Fort Lauderdale? And that way we have like our whole team there. We have, everybody gets to bond, right? Like your girlfriend, Louisa, like they get to hang out. So I think it's just more of like a thought process where when we're in foreign countries, we tend to go to Airbnb, but when we're doing short stays for like just 2 days, we tend to go to hotels. And I think it's just kind of that mindset. But Airbnbs, I think the biggest challenge I've had with them in the States, they're just gross. A lot of them are just poorly maintained, and their pictures are great, but the quality is poor.
Yeah. We've seen that overseas. Like, we
Even our
stayed at,
Punta Cana place was like this. Like, remember when we pulled the carpet up and I yelled at the developer, bro, we pulled the carpet up. There were cigarette butts underneath. I was like,
it was so bad.
I just can't, like, I'm sitting there cleaning for the first 2-3 days. I'm like, I just can't figure out why it feels dirty in here. And so I picked up the carpet. It was a heavy carpet. I picked it up, I peeled it back, and I was like, Cody, give me somebody's going to get their head turned. And then they came in and they did like a 4-hour scrub of the apartment. And then it finally felt clean. It was just nasty, dude. Like there was literally cigarette butts underneath the carpet in the Airbnb. And I was like, I was livid, bro. There was sand and dirt and like trash behind the couch. So like, I think that's a concern that a lot of people have. So how do you kind of like address that with the management company? We've stayed at Cody and I have stayed at a lot of places over the last 2 years. I think I'm over 30 places, maybe 40 places. And that's not including like US hotels for like work travel. So just like in the last 2 years of us cruising up and down the Latin America, I think we're at like 20 to 30 places, if not more. Yeah.
So my personal background in real estate is in short-term rental management. That's how I got started, really. So, and this is pre-pandemic. So this is like just before, it's like a boom, basically, especially in the UK, of Airbnb properties. And we had to set up our own cleaning company and those things. But really, that's the main thing about it is, although people have, self-service, they can access the property themselves, we as a management company still have to maintain, the quality of, the cleans ourselves. And I think back to what you were saying, it depends on the type of stay. For me personally, like if I'm, traveling somewhere for a conference or, any sort of event, I particularly prefer, a hotel just for convenience. Sometimes it's easier it's got a gym included, probably got a swimming pool, can get breakfast included. Don't have to really think about anything. However, if I'm traveling, with a group of friends and family, then we typically go for Airbnbs because, as you mentioned, in a hotel, you kind of lose that communal space where everyone can kind of connect and enjoy each other's company. So I think it just depends on, why you're traveling. In terms of the actual, like how we operate as a platform to kind of mitigate those risks, is that the actual resort development themselves, they have their own internal management. So because they're operating as a resort, and not only a normal resort, a luxury resort, their standards are going to be much higher than the standard hotel or a typical Airbnb, just to be able to maintain that premium price for their clients. So it means that we can get a much better quality overall, and it's not even something that we even have to consider in a 5-star resort.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, we do have to wrap up here. Ricardo, if somebody were want to reach out to you, they want to learn more about your platform, where's the best place we can kind of send them to in order for them to either reach out to you directly or learn more about the platform?
If you want to learn more about the platform, it's Oasis global.io, OASES. If you want to connect with me personally, I think LinkedIn is probably the best place, Ricardo C. Johnson. Even if you search me on YouTube, I've got some webinars on there especially like people like agents who want to learn more about what's happening, how they can get involved. That's a good place to start. I personally believe over the next, 5 to 10 years, this will become more commonplace, especially amongst agents as they learn, what opportunities that there are out there on the global scale. So I think it's good to...
I got one last question.
Okay.
The biggest challenge that agents have that are non-investors, right? Like, let's say they don't have the money, is why would I send them to your platform when I could sell them something locally and get a commission?
What we're actually creating is a way that remote agents, we haven't formalized it fully yet, could actually join our platform, introduce investors and generate not just a one-off commission on sales, but passive commissions. So once that, that investor joins, whatever they continue to invest in over their, lifetime on the platform, they can generate commissions, directly from that, all on chain. So it's
Super
something
smart.
we actually want to create, because I feel like in general, although it's, tokenized real estate, it might seem, far-fetched to someone just introduced to it now. But the way that real estate markets, operate across the world is very similar. You have local markets, local agents, and, there's a plethora or an abundance of opportunity for anyone to get involved. Low barrier entry for people to want to learn and to connect investors. So I do envision it. The same thing will happen here, especially for people who get in early.
Hey, Ricardo, man, appreciate your time today. Appreciate you joining us on the podcast. And I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the Our Agent Podcast. If you got any value today, the only thing we ask is a review on iTunes. There's a link in the comment section below. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Our Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon.